right, welcome back. And this would be the latest thing we're going to take a look at. A little personal project I picked up off of eBay, super cheap. I think it was less than 20 bucks to get it shipped here. This is a realistic Model 12-1930 AM/FM auto reverse cassette deck. And this was first introduced into their 1987 catalog at about 150 bucks. So it's not a super high-end unit, as you might imagine. You won't find any preamp out jacks on this. Not many provisions as far as fancy features is concerned. No Dolby noise reduction, no music search, but there is metal tape capability and a 5-band equalizer built in. Don't know much about this. The sellers just simply stated that it doesn't work, and there is a tape stuck in it. So thought it would be a fun one for sure to take apart and have a look at. I know it's been many years for me since I've worked on a car stereo, so I thought it would be a nice fun project just to have a look around and see if we can figure out what's going on with it. So give me a minute to get set up for that, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look and see what it's doing or what it's not doing. All right, coming back in here, let's take a little closer look at this guy. And it looks like across the front we've got the digital tuning readout and the metal tape button, mono, and then band selection, AM, a memory button for your 6 presets, and then your 5-band EQ. And as I said, there's a tape stuck. It won't come out, so I'm going to assume the heads are engaged, and that's why. Looking on the side here at the heatsink, I see 2 screws followed by 2 on the other side, so I'm wondering if there's dual AFPOs here, or am I just seeing 2 screws for an AFPO and maybe 2 screws for some sort of motor controller, but I doubt that's the case. It's probably dual AFPOs. And as standard with most realistic car stereos, or all of them to my knowledge, was this 5-pin plug that they always put on their stereos. One was for the front speakers and the positive feed, and the other one's been cut off and spliced up, and there would be another one over here for the rear speakers. You got the orange line, which I believe is illumination, I think, and then you'd have probably a switched antenna lead, and then the ground. Standard antenna connector for the time, nothing fancy there. And here is the catalog ad. 150 bucks, brand new for 1987, 24 watts, so I bet it is dual AFPOs, 12 watts per AFPO. And they're pumping it up pretty good here. The powerful 12 watt per channel amplifier gives you home quality sound, and you can customize its frequency response with the equalizer. Punch up the bass, smooth out the mid-range, even reduce tape hiss. So yeah, it was cheap enough to where I was like totally interested in getting this and seeing if I could fix it. I was actually looking for a Clarion one when I bought this, and just didn't want to spend the money for a Clarion one. Prefer to get one cheaper, that way if we wind up with a no repair, we haven't lost very much. So well, let's get it opened up and let's have a look. The first thing we're probably going to have to do, I'm going to go ahead and chop this off so we can get power hooked up to it, and we'll cut these off too and get rid of these, and we'll find out what's going on with this. So hang in there. All right, here we go. Coming back in through our 12 volts into it, and all that's happening is basically just our tape clicking back and forth, and that's pretty much it. Trying to eject doesn't do anything other than raise the tape up, but the tape won't come out. Fast forward and rewind has zero effect. And so we do got a clock display, but you can see the directional indicator just kind of darting back and forth, back and forth. Usually that would be an indication that the reel is not moving, which obviously it's not. So I'm not sure. And looking at the radio, I'm not sure who made it for them. It looks like it could be maybe AudioVox or Sparkomatic maybe. I'm not sure. The output devices are kind of buried inside this thing. They're not getting hot. We're not drawing any current really. So I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure what's happening here. Let's see. Can't tell what that chip says. How about this one? It's an LA number, so it's Sanyo. 3600 Sanyo chip. Maybe Sanyo made the radio. Let's take a look. Push this to get the radio on, but since the tape is stuck in it, it's probably not going to come on. So I don't know what's happening here. Probably in order to get this mechanism out, we're going to have to take the front mask off because there's probably screw access there. I don't think these two are close enough together to be the ones that would hold the mechanism from the front. That one probably does the rear. You can tell it's been taken apart a few times. You can tell somebody's been in there messing around. So, all right, let's kill the power. And it does have key off head release. So the head's moved back, but that still doesn't allow the tape to come out. So, all right, let's pause here. Let me get the front off of it, and then we can see if we can get the tape out of it, because we're not going to know anything until we get the tape out anyway. So, hang on and let me do that. All right, well, I got the tape out of it, and we got the radio working, and this is what was stuck in it. George Strait Greatest Hits Volume 1. This in itself is probably the reason why the tape deck didn't want to work. But no, seriously, the tape deck still doesn't work. However, I did find out that it's not the mechanism that was preventing the tape from ejecting. It was actually the flip door in the front mask. There's a tab off the right hand side there that protrudes out, and that tab was bent, and as the tape would come up and try to slide past it, it would get caught right there because that was bent down some. So I'm not sure I got it in the right spot, but I know that if that tape tried to pass through there now, it probably would clear it and probably would be okay. So we'll have to put that back on and give that a shot. I hooked up some speakers here. Wasn't real sure. I was pretty sure that the green was either the right or the left, and the gray was the right or the left. And so I had a 50-50 shot at it, and the first attempt I got them out of phase, and so I had to flip one of them around basically. I'll tell you, man, that EQ don't sound too bad. some home audio quality in a car stereo, as they say in the catalog. Over on the fader side, all you're really doing is just, you know, basically balancing between the front speakers and the rear speakers using the same amplifier, so there's no real need to hook up rear speakers if the front ones are working. Then unless you've got some kind of wiring problem in the fader, then the rear speakers ought to be working also. So as for the wiring, I'm still not sure about the wiring. I'm thinking that probably this is not a remote turn-on wire, but this is probably the memory backup wire, because there's no yellow wire here, which is normally the constant 12, and then the red wire is the ignition switch 12. So I'm thinking that this guy right here might be the memory backup wire. So not really a big concern at this point. All right, so it looks like what's going to have to happen is screw left, screw right. Those will have to come out, as well as the one under the bottom. And we'll get the mechanism out and have a look and see if we can figure it out, because from what I know and what I remember is until that tape commits to a direction to move in, all it will do is just sit there and flip back and forth. So if the reels aren't moving, that's pretty much the scenario. It just flicks back and forth, back and forth. So there's something going on, but I'm not sure what. We'll have to get it out and figure it out and see what's going on. All right, so let's do this. Let's take a jumper and let's jumper this, and let's put it on our 12 volts. If I can get this clip to open up far enough for me to do that. Okay, so now if this is truly the backup, then we should be able to kill it. Let that sit for a second. I think that's it. I can't believe this thing doesn't have any scratchiness in any of the control. Because there's no telling, this probably sat in a car for God knows how many years without being used. So I am really surprised. All right, so let me get this out so we can flip it over and have a look on the underneath and see if we can figure out what's going on with that. But at this point, we do have a working radio, so, you know, it was probably a lot easier than I had originally thought, or it was a lot easier than I originally thought. I thought sure we'd probably have somebody that wired it up wrong and we had a hole blown in the AFPO or burnt traces under the bottom or something like that, but as it turns out, we got a mechanism problem. So, all right, give me a minute. We'll get the mechanism out, flip it over, and we'll have a look. All right, coming back in about 12 hours later with a fresh set of eyes to take a look at things, and we have our George Strait tape stuck in the mechanism. And everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing as far as the capstans up into the capstan motor. But what I've noticed is right off of the capstan motor, we'll start this parade of gears that will ultimately wind up inside this portion of the mechanism which drives the reels, take up and supply reel. And what I noticed was right here, Let's see if we can zoom in on it maybe. It's right there. That looks like a double-staged clutched gear, and that is just floppy laying in there. And so that right there, that's why this is not moving. So luckily, by looking at these screws, this has never been opened up. The belt's been changed. It's the wrong one. It's way too tight. It will work, but it's way too tight. But what we're going to need to do is I'm going to pull out this screw and this screw, take the belt off, and remove the C-clip that holds this armature. I don't know if when you lift this, this comes out, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to take it out. And so then that mechanism will come completely out and we can have a look at that gear, but there's definitely something wrong there. So give me a second to get that out, and then I'll bring you back and we'll have a look at that. All right, coming back in now. I have that dislodged enough. I had to take a capstan out, which was clipped from the other side, and quite a few pieces of the mechanism over in this area to just get this up far enough to get that gear out of it. And what this is this is a clutched gear. There's a felt pad right here, and the two pieces are locked together with a center piece which is missing. It's not in there. It probably developed a crack down the center of it and it broke apart and came out of the unit. And what happens is this gives you kind of a clutched torque on moving these reels around inside here. And so I don't know how. I'm gonna have to see if I have an old gear that we can fashion a piece into there, because there isn't any other way that I know of, unless there's a new gear, and we're not getting a new gear. So I mean, I don't think I'm gonna feel like I got my money's worth out of doing this if I can't get it to play a tape. Just to play a tape. It doesn't have to be it's gonna be put in a car and last forever, but I do wanna see it play a tape. So I'm gonna look and see if I can find something that might work. And I looked down inside the unit and I didn't see it anywhere in there. And in the process of shaking the unit, this came out of it, but I'm sure it's a part of the mechanism. I think it's the plunger for the solenoid. So I'm gonna have to put that back in there. But yeah, there's quite a few pieces over here that I had to take off, including a gear that's under tension by this spring. And if I would have been smart, I would have been snapping pictures of all this shit, but I did not do that. And so hopefully I can get it all back together correctly. But before any of that, we got to figure out something with this. So let me see what I can find. Really what needs to happen, there's a small spring that would go here, and then another thing would press against, another plate would press against that. So yeah, let me see what I can find with this, and we'll come back. All right, before I get way too far ahead of myself, I wanted to kind of show you what I've done here. Is I took, this is an old Sony CD mechanism, I believe. Yeah, Sony CD mechanism, and it has a gear drive for the sled, or for the laser assembly. I took that off and figured out, and I have such limited choices for these parts anymore. I just don't have a stash of these kind of parts. And so what I needed was, I need a piece that will go directly into this. And so I found out that that would, and the only problem is that this, the little tip of that coming out wouldn't go in there, so I just got a drill bit and drilled it out and got it to fit. So the next part of this, if we're going to make this happen, is I'm going to have to cut that off, and I'm not sure, because I can't get it hot or otherwise it'll melt it. So I think I'm going to have to try to do it with an X-Acto knife, and that's always fun. And then after I get that cut off, maybe put a spring on it, and I went ahead and took this piece completely out, which again, this is the Badlands, taking all this kind of stuff apart because of the simple fact that I wasn't, I was concerned with trying to be safe about it, and I wasn't really paying attention to what went where, and so hopefully I'll be able to get it all back the way it goes. But ultimately what will happen is this gear will go here. Yeah, it goes there. But the one that's broke is what rides up against here. And if we substitute that piece, let's do that. I'll show you that. Keep it in mind, all we care about is this piece right here. We don't care about the rest of this gear. That'll all be gone. But if we apply that, then you can see that the reels start to turn then. Once that gear is back in play, then the reels turn. And then of course, depending on which direction you're going to head, it'll only be the take up or the forward direction or the reverse direction moving. So, but without that, we have to have that. That gear has to be working. If it's not working, the reels don't move. So I'm going to see what I can do about getting the two pieces fixed together somehow, and then we'll come back. And there's an edge right there that like a split ring washer can be put to secure it all down. Again, this is not going to be, hey, let's go ahead and put this in somebody's car. This is good to go. This is just to get it to the point where I can hear a tape in it. I don't anticipate that this is going to be any kind of even semi-permanent fix. This is just a fix to get it to the point where I can play a tape in it. And then once that's accomplished, that's it. I would not recommend anyone putting this in their car for any type of reliability other than the radio. The tape deck, I would say, would probably fail within the first 45 minutes of playing a tape. Maybe not that quick, but it would fail. And so I don't want to run the risk of, I won't be selling it saying that, hey, it's fixed, it's working fine. So, all right, let me see if I can get that piece cut off here. And once I get all that cut off, see if we can get it put into this, and then we'll come back. All right, coming back in, and my first attempt, unfortunately, I broke the first piece I was trying to work with when I was trying to get it cut apart with the X-Acto knife. But I did get that second attempt done good enough that I think it'll be fine. So the way this is going to kind of go is the piece that I kind of made out of that old gear will kind of go in the center. And then from there, we'll mate the two pieces together and see they can turn inside of each other with no trouble, against each other, I guess. And then what we'll do, let's see if I can get this over here and give you a shot of it. This will sit on here like this, mating with everything. And then we'll throw a larger washer on top. And of course, when the pieces that originally went there were lost, the correct size split ring washer for that was lost. So what I did was, a friend of mine had given me this little portable Sony tape recorder, which I didn't really have a use for until today, apparently. And so I removed the split ring washer from there, and I'll use that to secure it with. So It's all kind of touchy and frail to try to work with. But that's it, and it's on there. And it might just be good enough to get us to the point where we can play a tape in it. I don't think fast forward and rewind would work, because the whole idea of these clutched pieces is, I believe one section would do fast forward and rewind and the other section would do play, maybe. But I think that's going to be good enough to get us to the point to where we can play. And there's not a lot of play in that, not any more play in that than some of these other ones here. But this is not perfect by any means. It's just a method to get it to the point where it might be able to move the tape and we can get a tape to play. So now that all that is back, the real work begins, trying to get this placed back in here with all of the little pieces aligning up with all of the little armatures, all the little pieces, kind of getting those put back into place. So I'll pause here because this is probably going to be a half hour to try to get it lined up, and then we'll come back and see if we got a winner. So hold on. All right, that's enough of that. So fast forward a couple hours down the road, and as it turns out, my first attempt to get the reel drive mechanism put back into the main mechanism was a horrible failure. I had missed a couple of key things, and one of them being is on the main mechanism there is an armature that moves back and forth that will line up with two very small armatures on this that shift it to forward direction or reverse direction depending on which way you want the tape to go. And I missed that, and so I had both reels moving at the same time, and I wasn't sure why that was happening, and so it took me a while to figure that out. And the next thing is, because of the fact that I kept taking the mechanism in and out, these wires were breaking off at an alarming rate, and so I had to keep tacking those back on. And of course I wasn't smart enough to take a picture of that, and so I had to kind of process of elimination figure out where the wires went. But it is working, and the gear that I made, actually that also had an issue, is the actual gear when it's complete and from the factory, there's a spring in it that compresses the two pieces together with enough force that the bottom part of that, the one that was just kind of laying there and flopping around, actually has enough torque to drive the reels. But when I pressed it together, I wasn't able to figure out how to get a spring. I didn't have a spring that would fit in there and keep enough compression on the two pieces. And so I decided to do it without the spring, thinking that maybe there would be enough torque there just to move the reel. And that turned out not to be the case either. So if we can get it turned off here, let me see. I don't think you can see it now. But there is a, let's see if I can rotate this around. What I wound up doing is taking a drill bit, and I drilled a hole through both gears and put a small screw in it. And what that does is keep them both compressed together. Of course, you do not have any of the clutched action that you really need to have with the reel drive set up in this, but I knew that would be enough to get it up and get it working. So yeah, it was a lot longer than I anticipated on spending on this, but I did want to hear a tape in it and have the tape deck up and working. So I think at this point, what we're going to do, let me go ahead and I'll put it back together and we'll do a final play test on it. And then from that point, we'll be done with this. So give me a minute to get that set up. All right, as we come to the close of this one, we started this out listening to a foreigner song. And so I thought it would be pretty fitting to do another Lou Gramm song. And this was from his band Shadow King, which he had briefly with Vivian Campbell. And this is one of my last remaining cassettes, and so I thought this would be a good one to listen to on the way out. So let's hear a little bit of this. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video for the Realistic Car Stereo from 1987. The next project we're going to do is going to be another video project. It's going to be a Sony Super Betamax video recorder. And we'll probably tackle that one maybe after Christmas. So till then, thanks for watching and have a good holiday.